Hi, welcome back to the Cuzzy Sound channel and part 11 in my Little Boxes series. What's the little box? It's the metal box. Bit of background to the metal box. I started out, I wanted to build the logic noise cowbell type circuit. Christian does a version of it in his Modular in a Week series. I'll give you a link to that. So I started by knocking it up on breadboard. That's kind of the remnants of the breadboard circuit. And yeah, it sort of worked. I could get something that sounded like a cowbell from it, and also a lot of really gritty metallic oscillator type sounds. Now, because it worked, I decided I'll put it on a strip board. So I built a 3 oscillator version. So there we have a strip board with 3 oscillators on it. A lot of the cowbell circuits use 6 oscillators, but I wanted to keep it a little bit more simple, a little bit more compact. And so yeah, put that together and then plugged it into Project 12 to try and get it playing nice with that. And I was having all sorts of problems trying to get the right balance on the outputs. So I did a little bit of a modification, and again with limited success. I mean, the circuit was working, it just wasn't quite giving me what I was looking for. Whilst playing around with this, my son heard what it was doing, and he said, "Oh yeah, reasonably credible cowbell, but the actual metallic oscillators, wow, now you could use that as a nice gritty bass line." So what I did, I took an output from just the oscillators and started feeding that through Project 12, and I found that if I used a Vactrol VCA and an envelope and then triggered it with that, I could get a nice stab, metallic stab kind of oscillator bass line going. So now, okay, now we're going to ditch the idea of building a cowbell, and what we're going to build is a metallic bassline oscillator module. So I kind of worked out what I needed, put the circuit together, and the circuit diagram looks like this. So we've got the 4106 producing 3 matched oscillators, the output of which then goes through the 4070 exclusive OR gate, which gives me the metallic sound. Then below that we've got the envelope generator. Now that's the same envelope generator circuit that I used in my very first Project 9 modular synth. I'll put a link to that and you can go and have a look at what that circuit is there. But then there's very simply a Vactrol in there, and I make my own Vactrols. The way I do it, I get a white LED, I get a light dependent resistor, put them together, and then seal them in some black heat shrink tubing. Very simple, but it works for me. Normally what you would do with a Vactrol as well is you'd have a current limiting resistor on the diode so that you don't burn the diode out if you send something in that's a bit too strong for it. But if you look at the circuit diagram, let's break it down and have a look at what each bit of it is. So here you can see, so you've got the oscillators there, and then underneath that you've got the envelope generator, and then you've got the Vactrol. Now the reason that I've not got a current limiting resistor dedicated to the Vactrol is, if you look at the output from the envelope generator, there's a 1K resistor there, which is pretty much what I would use as a current limiting resistor on the Vactrol anyway. So it's already taken care of. So that's the circuit diagram. So I then decided to build it on two boards, so build the oscillators on one board and build the envelope generator on another board, and then basically join them together via the Vactrol. So the stripboard layout for the oscillators looks like this. Very simple. There's two chips, and then there's on the board there's just the three capacitors for the three oscillators, and then the pitch pots for the oscillators are connected on there. And then you've got the output going via the exclusive OR gate. So that's the stripboard layout for that one, and the stripboard layout for the envelope generator looks like this. Again, a very, very simple, very compact design, which makes it ideal for a little boxes project. Now, what I'll put the circuit diagram and the stripboard layouts in my Dropbox folder. The link for that will be down in the description, so you can go and get some nice clear images of those out there. Yeah, so then all I need to do was put it into the little box. So if I look at what it looks like when it's built into the little box, so there you go. You can see we've got the controls on one side of the box. That's the lid side of the box. And in the base of the box, we've got the circuits and a little 9-volt battery in there. If you look closer at the circuits, you can see which is which. So we've got the envelope generator, we've got the oscillators, and then the Vactrol basically joins the two boards together and lays across the top. And then there's the links to the controls on the top of the box. Well, there you go. That's how I arrived at the design, and that's how I put it together. What does it sound like? Right, we'll head over to the bench, we'll fire it up, put it through a few things, and yeah, we'll hear what it can do. Before we get too far into what we can do with this thing, we'll just have a quick run through the controls. So we have power on off and a little LED indicator. I try and do that with all the battery circuits so that you don't accidentally leave it switched on and run the battery flat when you're not doing anything with it. And then we have a gate input and then the audio output. The three controls across the top are the pitch controls for each of the oscillators, and then we have an attack control and a release control for the envelope part of the circuit. So yeah, relatively simple. So what I've got at the moment is I've got a square wave clock signal coming in to the gate input, and then the output is going to the mixer, just so I can give you an idea of what the basic control sounds like. So it's a fairly rapid clock, so it sounds so what I'm going to do, I'm going to tweak the oscillator controls, and you can hear what effect that has. carried away with that. You get the general idea. So what I'll do now is I'll tweak the attack and release. But I'll slow the clock down first, otherwise you won't hear. So that was release. I'll play around with the attack. It's difficult to kind of hear any real effect on the attack with that. But what you find if you kind of try and trigger it with some different modules. So I'm going to pull the camera back a little bit and then try and trigger it with things like I shall take the clock signal and put it through my gate to trigger, so I get a shorter, sharp pulse. And then one of the other things that I've found works rather well is if I actually trigger things with an LFO. So we'll try another couple of things, but I'll pull back so you can see a little bit more of the synth and hear what we can do. So for this first part of the next demo, I've got the clock that was producing the square wave output going into my gate to trigger module, and then a trigger output going into the gate input on metal box. Okay, let's start the clock. You can see the clock ticking away here, then I've got the lights flashing on there. So now we're back to sounding more like a percussion module. Turn up the release. Because the trigger function is producing a really short pulse, if I turn the attack up from anything from, minimum, you'll hear what happens. It disappears because the delay I've now created on the attack is not allowing the short trigger pulse to come through. Well, that's nice. Speeding up the clock. I'm not doing any filtering or anything. This is still just clock signal into gate to trigger, trigger signal into metal box to mixer. Okay, let's try and trigger metal box from an LFO. So this is my LFO module, and I've got a rate shape. I'm going to leave the shape switch to square. I'm going to tweak it while it's playing, but you'll hear what happens. But it works best if it's on square. So we're starting on square. If I tweak the tact control, it should have a little bit more effect. What I've done there is turn the LFO towards its triangle wave output as opposed to its square wave output. Of course, if you add a little bit of delay into the mix, well, I could play for hours, and I usually do, but I think that's enough for this video. So, yeah, what set out as an attempt to build a cowbell has resulted in something which I think is far crazier and far more versatile, and yeah, hours of fun. So yeah, I've given you the circuit diagram, I've given you the stripboard layouts, so if you want to have a play with some metal madness, then yeah, have a go. Build your own.